In this video, we're going to be comparing Make.com AI agents to n8n AI agents. Now, Make.com finally, after months, has released their own AI agent in direct comparison to n8n's AI agents, and for a very good reason. Take a look at this graph. This is n8n. The blue is Make.com. This is when, in July last year, AI agents were released in n8n, and essentially there was explosive growth. And somewhere along the line, Make.com decided, well, it's probably good enough time to release AI agents. And so they have gone ahead and done so. Now, if you guys want to watch a full demo of how this works in Make.com, you can go over to my YouTube channel and click on the Make.com AI agent video right here. But today we're going to be talking about essentially a comparison between these two technologies and specifically what the takeaways were that I found between using them. With that being said, let's get into this right now. So just to start here, n8n is going to be much better. There's absolutely no doubt about it. If we go back to our chart here, I mean, look at when they started versus Make.com is like a day ago, right? So they have like almost a year head start on Make.com. Now, I'm less concerned about which is better at this very moment in time, and I'm more concerned about which software is going to be better in the future. And so that is what this video is about, is where is this technology heading and which player is going to come out ahead. So let's kind of break this down into other takeaways. I think that Make.com is likely just going to copy everything about n8n's AI agents. They're already very similar as it is, and for a good reason. I mean, like, just practically speaking, if you were running Make.com and you saw this explosive growth, you'd probably be thinking, might be a good time to copy everything they're doing that's been successful up until this point in time, because chances are Make.com wants to see the same success as n8n, and the best way they're going to do that is just by literally copying all the things that work. So with that being said, I'm sure they're going to catch up pretty soon. However, for the time being, it is a bit buggy, and this is to be expected. I mean, I'm sure when n8n rolled out their AI agent like a year ago, it probably wasn't perfect out of the box either. And so, yeah, in the coming time, this is obviously going to be improved. Now, my thoughts are this, because I get asked this question over and over again: should I choose Make.com? Should I choose n8n? I think it's almost going to be the same answer for AI agents here too. Make.com is all about the casual user, okay? And so it's all about gearing towards simplicity, ease of use, just getting things up and running really quickly, while n8n is also going for the same thing. They're going for easy and they're going for simple, but they're also trying to go for the more advanced user, trying to provide as much functionality, as much flexibility as possible. And so that's kind of the niche that they're going into, is just giving as many options to their end user as possible. And just before we get into the rest, I wanted to go over business use cases. I actually had a question in my community from Simon here, who was asking about, what can you actually do with this technology? And I wanted to just quickly intervene here by saying two things. Number one, n8n is going to shine in the business use case because it can build out technology which Make.com cannot. Now, what I wanted to talk about with business use cases is not the flash, not the cool things, but the things that like a 6, 7, or 8-figure business would use today in their business, things that people come to me all the time for and ask me to build out for themselves. And that is primarily RAG systems and multi-agent customer service builds. Now, these are very similar because a multi-agent customer service build would be essentially dependent on a RAG system. But what this means is you're setting up a vector database. Usually that's using a software like Pinecone. And so how this works is you can think about this like a brain. Okay, this database is a brain of your most intelligent employee. You feed in all of your training. Imagine onboarding somebody and you're like training them with all of the information that you need to teach them in order for them to do a good job. You teach them all their standard operating procedures. You get them all of the contracts, all the invoices that past clients have signed and paid, all the emails, text messages, web scraping your entire website, everything. It's all compressed in there, okay? And then essentially when a client asks a question to a chatbot, that chatbot is going to like ask the brain, hey, can you give me the most similar answer? And it'll give you the most similar answer. So for example, if you're a landscaping company and a client comes to you and says, hey, for a lawn mowing service for 6 hours, how much is that going to cost? It's going to retrieve the most similar answer for lawn mowing service for 6 hours. And it's going to say that costs $1,020 to $1,080 plus taxes or whatever. And so that's one example. Make.com can't integrate into vector databases right now, so this is null for them, but n8n can, and multi-agent systems can just expand a bit past that by being like, potentially, if somebody asks, hey, can you send over an invoice for me? This might be like, sure, no problem, and then it actually emails that invoice automatically. Now, these systems are not perfect. They have a long way to go, but they are very powerful in and of themselves. That's kind of like, to me, the best use case. Now let's get into the core differences between these. So I've labeled these as 3 colors: green, red, and yellow. Green is where there's a clear winner, red is where there's a clear loser, and yellow is where things are likely more gray area, where of course there might be a winner for now, but that difference, that gap between the two, will likely close over time. And so that's why I started this video by saying, like, obviously there is a clear winner, but that huge margin between them will shrink over time as they essentially copy each other. And so let's break this down. The first one is tools attached. So n8n definitely wins this. What I mean by that is, like, if we take a look at your typical AI agent in n8n, they have all these tools that you can plug in straight into the AI agent. It's really nice. I could add in as many tools as I wanted to here, and I can load it up. The reason why this is beneficial, in my opinion, is because, like, it just, like, if you're building something out that's super simple, it's really quick. You can get it up running in a couple seconds or a couple minutes. And so the simplicity of it is just hard to beat. Of course, you could have like sub-agent flows where the main agent, which is this, can communicate with like sub-agents, which is like something like this. So it's a secondary workflow that it's asking to do the work for it. But with Make.com, that's just not the case. And so with Make.com, essentially you have this AI agent module here, okay? And again, if you guys want to learn more about this, I recommend taking a look at the last video where I talk about AI agents in Make.com. But essentially with this module right here, it's all sub workflows. So you can have these additional tools. And for example, maybe you want to check your calendar, and then it sends over to the calendar searching sub-agent. And it's cool, right? But, in terms of like actually getting it up and running pretty quick, you have to always rely on sub-agents, which is kind of a pain in the ass. And I'm going to get into this later in the video, but it's a pain because it just takes so freaking long to sometimes set up these builds where you have to do like 5 or 10 or 15 boilerplate things every single time you want anything to be done inside Make.com. So for that reason, I think n8n wins. And because this is red, what I'm saying here is I don't ever think that the architecture of Make.com is going to change to the point where you don't have like a linear progression where it just goes from one line to the next. I think that like in n8n, they did a good job where you can have like your whatever branching off, and it's not just like a linear line where it's just going from one direction to the next. You can have like multiple things going down in all directions. I do really like that. Whereas with Make.com, it's just not the case. I don't see them redesigning their entire software to have like sub-agents or whatever, sub workflows branching out in different directions from this AI agent. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know your thoughts in the comments if you think I am. That's just my opinion. The next thing is built-in chat. I really like how n8n has this built-in chat here. I just can't stress enough how nice it is to have an idea sitting in my brain thinking, oh, that would be really cool if I built out this or I built out that. And then I can just, in a matter of 2 seconds, come in here, build an AI agent, and automatically you just have the built-in chat. Like, you don't have to connect anything else in. But with Make.com, that's not the case. You have to use external softwares like Telegram, or like if we just open this up, we can just type in Messenger. There's like Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, MessageBird, and all these other ones that I don't think anyone's ever heard of, like ever in the history of humanity. Has anyone ever heard of Cozy before, or Revd? Okay, maybe. I don't know. Anyways, point being is that like this just adds friction, right? If you want to go in, get something done quick, this is going to take time. So that for that reason, I n8n is the clear winner. I also am hesitant or cautiously hesitant about Make.com actually releasing something like that, because they've never released anything like an internal trigger to start other than just their like one basic trigger, and it's kind of useless. So anyways, the jury's out. I don't think they're going to change. Maybe they do. Next thing is that kind of bleeds into the last one is time to build. So I think that these are both gray areas. I just rambled on for like 3 minutes about how Make.com is slow to build, but there's a caveat because n8n could also be horrifically long to build too. And when I mean horrifically long, I mean like potentially 10 times the length. Let's start with Make because we're already on here. The thing with Make is like you have this AI agent, okay? You have to connect into a tool here. And then once you do that, you have to create a subflow. First thing is you have to define scenario inputs, how you're getting information into the AI agent. So keep in mind, when a message comes into Telegram, okay, you're sending it into the AI agent and then you're taking information out. So if you're like, hey, I want to take a look at my calendar for tomorrow, tell me the events. Well, you have to have the start date of tomorrow and the end date as a day after tomorrow. So you get the whole day and not just like 6 hours or whatever. And so you have to pass that in. You have to define the inputs here. And then you might have to define the outputs of how you structure the data. And then you also have to change the trigger here to run on demand. And then you also have to enter in these parameters in here, which you created from down here. And then you have to save the scenario and then add it back into the main one. And the point is that like it seems maybe simple, but when you're running through this and you get stuck or errors happen, and it could just drag out, and it's kind of annoying every single time having to always do that anytime you want to build something. And so that for Make.com is kind of a pain in the ass. But when you look at n8n, they don't have that problem. It's very easy to get started. It's nice. The problem with n8n originates from the fact that they just don't have a lot of integrations. 1044 and Make.com has like over 2,500. But I also find like anecdotally too, even though they have 1044, most of the applications I go to use in n8n, they just don't even exist. So I'm like, what kind of 1044 applications do you have? Most of these are things that I just would never use in my life. Like they just don't have really simple things. So for example, like if I just come in here and I typed in Pinterest, for example, they don't have Pinterest. And it's like, this is like, what, $1 billion digital marketing or $1 billion social media platform. And like in my head, I'd be like thinking, isn't this like one of the first things that you'd probably implement into your software, knowing that the user base of this technology is probably over like 100 or 200 or 300 million people using this. And so it just kind of basic things like that. It makes me scratch my head thinking, why is this not built out? And then if you wanted to build this out, you'd have to go into the Pinterest API. And this is a whole headache in and of itself, because now you actually have to set up a developer's account. And so the reason I'm saying this is because I actually spent like 6 hours trying to build something out on Pinterest, only to realize after 6 hours that the API only through Pinterest here, and you can look at the API reference, it only worked for certain things, but it didn't work for others. And so I spent like 6 hours building something out. And if you've used n8n long enough and you've used these APIs and all this kind of stuff, it's like you'll know that this happens all the time, and you've probably been there wanting to smash your head against the wall because this has happened to you. And so for that reason, n8n can take way longer in some instances than Make.com ever would, because a lot of these tools are just natively integrated into Make.com. It's just so easy. The main ones you use are almost all there. And maybe your experience is different than mine, but from my experience using n8n, this happens to me more times than I care to admit. Next thing here is the tools available to, we actually just covered that. Next thing here is the vector databases. So if we kind of circle back to the business use case here, n8n shines because they have the RAG system. So what I mean by that is, like, if we go into their AI agent here, they have all of these vector databases. The most popular one I find is Pinecone, but there's also other ones that people love using as well. But essentially what a Pinecone or what a vector database is just like a way to efficiently store and retrieve information. So for example, if you run a plumbing company, you could store every contract in there. And then if somebody asked a question, you could use AI to fetch out the answer and respond back. So if that question was like, hey, can you tell me the exact pricing for like a 6-hour, like, project that requires this expertise, so it would like literally go in and find the closest result and then retrieve it back, just like an employee would try and estimate the closest ballpark range. And so as long as you feed in really good data, this is going to be really accurate or pretty accurate when it replies back to people. And so this is one of the best features when it comes to AI agents. And with Make.com, they just do not have this at the time of this recording. However, I do think that they will be rolling this out, because it would again be freaking crazy for them to decide, you know what? No, we're not going to do vector databases. That's n8n's thing. Like, we're out of that game. Like, of course, they're going to roll it out at some point in time. It's just a matter of time. But yeah, anyways, for now, n8n wins. The next thing is MCP. And so I think this is pretty cool. This is like a new feature in n8n, or just in like the general AI community. Model Context Protocol is what it stands for. And so you can see like in n8n, you have this MCP client here. And this is just like a tool you can attach onto AI agents. Now, I will say that even though this just came out natively in n8n like a couple days ago, the utility of it is very low, in my opinion, based on like what you can actually do. I think it's cool. It's going in the right direction, and it will get there eventually, but it's just in its infancy right now, and there's not a lot of applicable use cases. In a year, 2 years from now, that's totally going to change. This is going to be amazing. This is going to be a game-changing feature, I think. But with that being said, what this does, just to kind of give context, is take a look at this AI agent here. What this does is we have like a Google Calendar agent. It can update events, it can delete events, it can get all events, it can create events, and it can create events with attendees. And so when you're thinking about like Google Calendar, there's just so many different things that you can do within Google Calendar. So if I open this up again, I could delete, create, get many, update, all this kind of stuff. And there's probably like 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 more things that you could do in Google Calendar that's not even accessible through n8n. And what MCP does is it just literally merges all of these different things that you can do inside of software into like literally just one route. So the AI is just going to intelligently know which one of these 10 processes you want to take place in Google Calendar. So like you'd message the AI agents and you'd be like, I want to create an event for tomorrow at 2 p.m. And instead of having to define that you essentially want to create something, it's just going to be smart enough to read the word create and be like, oh yeah, he wants to create it. And then it's going to create it. So instead of you having to create like 17 freaking thousand billion trillion different paths for every single AI agent that you ever create in your entire life, you just have to create like one thing and then it's just going to do it. It's just going to understand intuitively. When you're saying update, it's going to update. When you're saying delete, it's going to delete. When you're saying create or find or whatever, it's just going to intelligently know. And if it's like, hey, I want you to update this event, maybe it has to find it first and then update it. If you're like, create this event, it might intelligently know, okay, well, I should check for conflicts first, as long as you had that in some system prompt. And so it'll check for conflicts before creating it. And so I think that's really cool. And so for that reason, n8n is definitely the winner here, but I'm sure Make.com, again, is probably just going to release this out. I think this is the natural evolution, not just of AI agents, but just of this technology in general. Like, it's further and further abstraction to the point where probably in the future, you're just going to message a bot and be like, you know, connect, as long as you have like some integration or API token into like some, some third-party application, like, for example, Google Sheets here. Where is that example? Yeah, as long as you have like a connection, you can just message n8n or some future software, and it's just going to do all the work for you. I think that's probably the direction we're heading in. But yeah, so past that, global AI agents. This is something that n8n doesn't have, but Make does have. So what I mean by that is like, you can reuse these n8n or Make.com agents in multiple different scenarios. So like, I could come in here, I could choose the AI agent, and so I can have like essentially a templated AI agent that I can reuse as a component across multiple different workflows. So I could have like 5 workflows using the same agent. Does that actually benefit anyone? I don't know. I can't think of a single use case, but I did want to point it out. If you guys know a single use case for this, please let me know because I'd be interested in hearing it. But, maybe there is. I initially thought that maybe you might be like a marketing agency, then have like 5 or 10 different clients where they all reuse it. But again, like everyone needs their own credentials. Everyone needs their own Google Gmail accounts, calendar accounts, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not too sure if that's going to be super applicable. Memory stores, I also think that this is not applicable. So I'm just going to breeze through it pretty fast here. But like with AI agents, you can have multiple different memory stores. And why I say it's not applicable is it is applicable for the right people. It's just that for the majority of users out there, I don't think they're going to be using these kind of technologies. Most people, I think, are going to be using just the generic setup here, right? And so, anyways, that's just kind of what I see in working with hundreds and hundreds of people every single month. But for like the software engineers or people that are looking for additional complexity, obviously this is really nice. And so I think that n8n shines there if you are looking for the deep dive into if you're looking for the just as much functionality as you possibly can. But that kind of brings me back to my main point here, where Make.com is all about being simple and easy for the casual user, while n8n is about giving flexibility and freedom to anyone to do anything they want to the greatest ability possible, while still being simple and easy to use as well. Okay, moving on. Defining parameters. I do like this about Make.com. So one thing I do find silly about n8n is like when you're building these AI agents and you call a subflow, you have to define parameters twice. Once when you pass it in here, and then once when you receive that information on the other side. And so now I have to define it here, but I also have to define it here. Whereas with Make.com, I don't have to define it at the main AI agent level. I just have to define these inputs at the sub-agent level just one time. And it's intelligent enough to recognize what data needs to be passed through. So that is nice. That's one of the features that I really like, is that you just have to define this stuff once. You don't have to repeat yourself multiple times over again. Last thing here is just testing. I do like in sub-agents, and this is testing in sub-agents specifically, I do like how n8n, you can have pinned and mock data here. So I can pin data, I can mock it, and then I can run this whole scenario out. Just makes testing and getting things live and ready to go way quicker because they have testing, pin data, mock data in mind. So it just like, it's going to allow you to, launch this kind of stuff so much faster. With Make.com, you don't have that. So if we just come back to like this scenario here, if this AI agent has a tool to search for Google Calendars, you're going to have to message through Telegram, then get it to the AI agent, then pass it through, then take a look at the results. That's the most common way. You could also do like an out-of-the-box feature where you add another thing and it's like set variables over here. And then you set multiple variables and you change the trigger over, and then you connect this in, and then you map these variables over here. And so that's another way, but I don't know. I just like, that's not as intuitive. And it's also, usually I don't like building out with extra modules just for testing, then keeping them in or whatnot. And it's just extra work in general. So with that being said, that's kind of the main differences between the two pieces of technology. Obviously, it's trending really hard right now. And I'm sure that Make.com is going to be following suit with n8n. And it's going to be really interesting to see where both of these two technologies go in the next year or two with this technology. So thanks guys for watching. As always, if you guys want more courses, or if you want all of my blueprints, you can take a look at my school community where I cover both of these technologies extensively. There's hundreds of videos here. There's tons of blueprints, and some of the coolest blueprints actually are these, where essentially these are the exact blueprints that I automated my entire business with. And I'm sure that if you're a service-based business, this will help you automate almost everything too. A lot of this does depend on, Make.com, n8n, also Go High Level. Go High Level is a bit expensive, but in the community, we actually give Go High Level accounts for $1 per month instead of $97 a month. month. I wish I could give it for free, but that was like literally the lowest amount on their on their SaaS mode. And then also in terms of calendar events, we have events all the time in case you get stuck with problems and you want to jump on a call and we can walk through together, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.